a frontier.
Well, firstly, congratulations. You've been a really busy boy since the last time we spoke. Directing TV, writing eps for Lost, Alias, Fringe, producing that little film about the handicap of Cloverfield. Managed to also fit in the reawakening, some would say, of one of the biggest franchises in the world, which is Star Trek. Do you have a life?
My wife and I have 3 kids, and yeah, I take them to school every day and give them a bath and put them to sleep at night. And we don't work on weekends because we have soccer and baseball. So
I find that so hard to believe.
it's all true. I work with a lot of great people, so it's not just me, for God's sakes. It's but it's also work I love, so I work hard at it. But it's dangerous if it becomes everything.
Yeah, sure. Well, you have a rather unique style and stamp across everything that you touch. It just happens to be that way. It's usually pretty smart. It's engaging. More than anything, it's entertaining. And that's something that's being a little bit lost. But you must be aware of that. So everything that you do, there is something that you know how you're going to JJ it a little bit, or you're going to deliver it with something that you feel comfortable with and proud of. How then do you attack something like Star Trek and still leave your stamp on it without having a complete anxiety attack for the rest of your life?
I think the first of all, thank you for your kind words. Secondly, because I was not a fan of Star Trek going in, I didn't have that insane reverence that would prevent me from trying to make a creative decision, meaning I wouldn't be limited by needing to adhere to what had come before. Having said that, the Trek fan base is critically important to me, and the last thing that we want to do is insult the people who for years have held this series in such high regard. So the challenge was to tell a story that was hopefully as entertaining as possible and also make it something that Trek fans would love. But don't try and serve the master of what do the Trek fans want, because we'll be doomed. We'll never work.
You've always had a hard time finding your place in this world, haven't you? Never knowing your true worth. You can settle for a less than ordinary life. Or do you feel like you were meant for something better? Something special?
What were the areas where you must ensure that certain things are done, and then what are the areas where I guess you have the most fear trying to tackle within a genre and a franchise like this?
Well, the things that we knew we wanted to do, like the obvious things, like the Enterprise, for the most part, needed to look like the Enterprise. We didn't want to play with that. The character of Spock and the rest of the characters, they needed to be the characters. I wanted to go back to the Kirk and Spock story, and because Nimoy's in the film, there needed to be some resemblance between Nimoy and the actor playing the younger Spock. Things like the communicators, the Starfleet logo, there are certain things, the round bridge, the view screen, there are certain things you just don't want to
the obvious ones.
Yeah. Having said that, I think that the fun of doing this movie was being able to approach it brand new and fresh, and not from a point of view of it's Star Trek 11. I had no idea, honestly, there had been 10 movies. When they first, I was like, yeah, doing Star Trek would be interesting. I thought maybe it'd be 5 or 6. I literally feel like an idiot. I had no idea that there had been 10. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but the fact that I didn't know there had been 10 said more to me than the fact that there had been 10. Meaning, I can't be alone in having not followed it closely. And so it felt like instead of trying to continue what had been done, it was a better idea to say, let's go back to what it was originally. Like, what is Star Trek? And there have been so many iterations of it, and it felt like Kirk and Spock was the way to start.
Who are you?
I'm with
He's
him.
with me. We are traveling at warp speed. How did you manage to beam aboard this ship?
Hey, you're the genius, you figure it out.
As acting captain of this vessel, I order you to answer the question.
Well, I'm not telling, acting captain. What now, that doesn't frustrate you, does it? My lack of cooperation. That doesn't make you angry.
Are you a member of Starfleet?
Yes. Can I get a towel?
Under penalty of court-martial, I order you to explain to me how you were able to beam aboard this ship while moving at warp.
Well, don't answer him.
You will answer me.
How did you balance the, I guess, the humor and the legitimacy of it? Because you have to I imagine that being one of the hardest things. It's got to be fun, but at the same time, it's
Yeah.
got to not piss anyone off.
I mean, the answer to that is obviously that we did the best we could. I knew because Star Trek had been parodied so many times, and as a huge fan of Galaxy Quest and that, the skits that you've seen time and again, if this movie didn't have a sense of humor in it, people would find one, and they would laugh at it, and it would just be a disaster. So the idea was to find a way to put as much comedy into the movie without it feeling like it was becoming a parody. So even though most of the stuff that would ever happen in a Star Trek movie is improbable, it should never be impossible. And so as long as the comedy was possible and it was character based and something that, because the actors all have great senses of humor, like the beauty of this cast, among other things, obviously Simon Pegg and John Cho are funny, but Carl Urban comes in and is hysterically funny, like out of the blue. You're like, I didn't think, because I knew him from Lord of the Rings and from the Bourne film, and I thought, sure, let's see him, but I honestly didn't think he came in and blew my mind how good he was, and spot on, for Bones. Chris Pine had not just the looks and the intelligence and obviously the acting chops that we needed, but he also had the thing that Shatner had, just in abundance, which was wit. And he was really funny, Shatner, and is. And Chris Pine, just like, thank God he's so funny. But the whole cast, Zoe's funny, and Zachary's funny, and Bruce Greenwood, who plays Pike, is maybe the most absurdly funny person I've ever met in my life. Like, the whole cast had that. So it was important that we allow the sense of humor of everyone to be used and not, stifled and, trying to do something self-serious.
Yeah. Well, what I liked is that it didn't bog itself down into self-serious stuff, because I'm not a Star Trek Trekkie by any means at all. I used to watch the TV show when I was a kid, and I loved how it looked a bit freaky. And since then, that's kind of it.
Right.
But I really enjoyed this because this was somewhere
thanks.
between what Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark did, where you are having an adventure, and then it's up to you how serious you want to get into it or not. But at the least, you like it.
Thank you.
But
Cheers.
what were were there any other references that you were looking at visually, as a movie, as a pace, as a type of great example of a genre that you would do for this?
I think the closest example, sort of tonally, was Superman, the original Superman.
Right.
Just because it was such an origin story, it had a scope and a scale. They invested in backstory. Donner spent time. You didn't need to spend almost 40 minutes, building up the movie before you finally met Christopher Reeves as Superman. But he did. And my feeling is that that movie, in its time, it embraced this kind of great, range of characters and tone, and there was good versus evil, and there was emotion, and there was action, and it was just, I just love that movie. So in a weird way, even more than Star Wars, which is an obvious reference, Superman, I think, was the thing that really, for all of us working on the movie, was an inspiration.
Awesome. Was there a point during the production or even during the writing where you just went, we've broken the back on it, I know now exactly how to do this? And if there was, I'd like to know what the device was that you went, ha, we've got it.
Well, I think that would be more really a question for the writers for what that moment was. But I can tell you that when, in working on the script with them and the story with them, and we spent a lot of time, all of us, the five of us, 2 writers and my 2 producing partners, working on what the story would be. When we came upon that notion of that time shift, basically, that allows, as a catalyst of the story, Spock going back in time and readjusting sort of the timeline that people are familiar with, it removed the burden completely of having to adhere to canon consistently for everything.
It's a license to kill.
It is, but it was a terrific, look, it's a cliche that Star Trek, has embraced from the beginning, which is that notion of time travel, that you don't want to overdo it, you don't want to use it, and I know time travel, who wants to see that again? That's not what the movie's about, but it's the way into the movie. So that to me was sort of the aha moment that allowed our movie to sort of peacefully coexist and not disregard, or deny the thing that fans hold dear.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well done.
Thank you, sir.
You are capable of deciding your own destiny. The question is, which path will you choose?
James T. Kirk was a great man, but that was another life.
They're locking torpedoes.
Emergency evasive! Fire everything!